Hey, fifth grade, we have got a big day today because we're going to be doing two lessons. We're going to be going over both plant and animal adaptation. So it's lesson 2 and 3 in your book, and it starts on page 114. So go ahead and get that ready. And if you want to write this down, or you could just refer back to Google Classroom. In lesson 2, your questions are going to be 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, 5. Okay, those are your questions in lesson 2. And then the questions that I want you to answer in lesson 3 are 1, 2, and 4. All right, so 1, 2, and 4, 1, 3, and 5. And then your Flipgrid response will be the question that's on page 125. It's number 8. And we'll get to it at the end, and we'll kind of talk about what the answer might be before, without totally giving you the answer. So we're diving right in. So, plant adaptations. When an environment changes, plants compete to use the same limited resources such as sunlight. Plants with the best adaptations are more likely to survive. An adaptation is a characteristic that increases an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in its environment. Adaptations do not happen quickly. They develop over many generations. Okay, so this is slow happening stuff. So like, let's say in California, we hear about the drought all the time, right? And so plants that are native to California, the drought has slowly kind of happened, right? Every year we get less and less water. So our plants have to kind of tweak a little bit so that they are able to survive with a little bit less water, and then a little bit less, and then a little bit less. And eventually, at some point, it's going to get to a place where certain organisms cannot continue to adapt, and then they might no longer be a part of that environment, right? And some are just more sensitive and wouldn't be able to make those changes anyway, right? So anyway, plants receive genes from their parents. Genes are instructions that determine how the plant grows. Because of these genes, most characteristics of a plant are the same as its parents. For example, a plant will have the same type of flowers and leaves as its parents. Very similar to animals, which is why we're doing this kind of together, right? So your traits are passed down from your parents, whether you're a plant or an animal. However, different combinations of genes may cause a plant to be a bit different. Just like your parents might look a bit different, and when they combine, they have not cloned themselves, right? It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Some plants may be a bit taller than their parents or may have different colored flowers. A plant may also have a mutation, which is a random change in its gene. A mutated gene may cause a plant to grow roots that are a bit longer than average, or to become unable to make wax to protect its leaves. Again, the mutations happen in humans too, not like X-Men mutations. Come on, guys. But a lot of times, mutations in genes unfortunately, in humans, a lot of times they give us things that, like, maybe we don't want, like an extra pinky, or like no, I think that's a developmental thing. I know that gene mutations can cause, I don't want to, not go in there because I'm not an expert and my knowledge is only like what's coming off the top of my head, and I don't want to make mistakes. But yes, mutations in genes do happen in humans, but to my recollection, generally speaking, they're not beneficial mutations. I could be wrong. Well, I think mutation, how some people can have like 2 eye colors, I think that might be a mutation. Don't quote me on it, but anyway, we're going to keep going. Natural selection. If a mutation helps a plant survive in its environment, that plant will have a better chance to live and reproduce. The plant will pass on its genes to its offspring. If the mutation is harmful to the plant will be less likely to survive or have offspring. Okay, so again, similarly, we've got, again, in humans, we've got modern medicine nowadays, and that's like great, good stuff. But let's say there's a tiger, right, who's born all white, so an albino tiger. And we know that the reason that they have their stripes is to kind of blend into that kind of grassy not savanna, maybe. Anyway, to their home, right? So it helps them blend into their environment. But if that baby is like all white, is it going to blend into its environment the way that its parents do? Not as much, which would most likely give it away to its prey. Not, they don't necessarily have predators, but right, it's going to be a lot more obvious when there's someone hunting them or when they are hunting, and therefore prey's not going to stick around, right? They're going to be like, oh, no, I gotta go, right? And so then therefore they might not be as likely to survive. Which is why a lot of times, I don't know if you guys have heard about animal mothers like rejecting their babies. A lot of times animal moms can tell like right away if there's something wrong with their kid, and so they're just like, nope. They don't want to deal with it because it's not helpful. Okay. Over many generations, small mutations can add up to surprising adaptations, such as strong roots or bright flowers. This process is called natural selection, right? Every time there's something new and beneficial, it just naturally keeps going in that direction. It favors useful mutations and reduces harmful mutations. Natural selection helps species develop adaptations to survive in different environments. And life cycle variations. Life cycle of plants are adapted to their environments. For example, the seeds of a Venus flytrap are programmed to germinate or sprout after winter. They will not germinate in an indoor pot unless they have been kept in the refrigerator for several weeks. Some plants, like morning glory vines, take advantage of the warm weather and grow very fast, produce flowers and seeds, and then die before the cold arrives again. Other plants live through the winter but do not produce flowers or seeds until spring. All right, so those are just some differences in when plants have their active growing season. So not all plants actively grow during spring like we might think they do. A lot of flowering plants do, but all right, physical characteristics. Changes in the parts of plants that could help it survive in its environment. For example, coconuts are large seeds. If the coconut from a particular palm tree can float a little better than average, these coconuts will more likely stay afloat when they fall into the water. Floating husks or outer covering is a structural adaptation that is helpful when a plant has seeds that are dispersed by water. This type of husk might allow the coconut to travel farther in the ocean more than a dense husk. If the seed travels farther than other seeds, it may have less competition for resources. But again, this goes back to stuff like, dandelions and whatnot. You'll answer number 3. You're going to answer number 1 on the previous page too, but you knew that already. All right, just trying to go kind of quickly because, we have a whole other lesson to cover. When an environment changes, communities of organisms in the environment also change. Succession is the predictable order of changes in a community after change occurs. As communities change, conditions might also change. New conditions allow different communities to move into the environment and grow. In most cases, succession occurs in stages. If conditions are right, bare land might become a grassland, or grassland might give way to shrubs. Shrubland will become a forest. Communities grow and replace one another until there is a stable community with few changes. All right, so you can see an example of succession here. They don't have it in the right order, but you could kind of tell that, right? It's just like all lake here, right? And then we've got some vegetation by the lake. Okay, so this would be number 1, number 2. And then we got some bushes and a couple of trees here now. And now look, voila, it's a forest. And there's still the lake there, right? So that lake is still giving all of that water to the land surrounding it. And that's just a really cool picture. I just really like staring at it. And I want to go into that house. And I also want to cut all of those plants. Anyway, we're going to move on. Because it's fun and great. Animal adaptations. So similar to plant adaptations. When there's a sudden threat, such as an attack by a predator, an animal such as the blue-ringed octopus may respond by changing color. Animals have physical and behavioral adaptations that help them survive by responding to sudden threats. The blue-ringed octopus is usually pale, but when a predator approaches, it turns a bright yellow color with blue rings. Other animals might respond by running, flying, or using poison. Changes in an environment, such as an increase in the salt content of the ocean over long periods of time, are too slow to affect individual animals. Animal species like plant species, change over time to adapt to such slow changes in their environment. Again, it happens over a really long time, right? It's not overnight. You'll do number 1. What is the function of fur, large eyes, and long legs? How is that helpful to an animal? Why might those be good? Life cycle variations. Different animals have different life cycles to help them survive. For example, many birds lay eggs in the spring when the weather warms up. The young hatchlings then have several months of good weather when it's available. This makes it easier for them to complete their growth. Sorry, that was embarrassing. You know I hate sneezing. It's disgusting. All right. Physical characteristics. Body parts of animals have useful characteristics to help them survive. Useful changes in the body parts of an animal are called structural adaptations. For example, animals that hunt tend to have eyes on the front of their heads. This makes them better at telling how far away their prey is, and they can pounce or swoop with precision. Animals that are hunted often have eyes on the sides of their head because that helps them to see where a predator might be coming from. Individual animals do not develop structural adaptations. Instead, animal species develop their physical characteristics through the process of natural selection, just as plant species do. Natural selection affects all species of living things. So, number 2. These are structural adaptations that each animal has. Write what you think the purpose of each one is. Gecko feet. Seriously, look it up. It's so weird. I remember watching, it had to be on Discovery Channel, but I was watching a thing about, it was a little segment on geckos. It probably wasn't a whole episode on geckos. But it was talking about how, their feet aren't actually sticky. It's just that, the pieces, the molecules within their feet, right, that just basically get down to, such a tiny level that it, legitimately, weaves itself into whatever structure it's on. It was trippy. It was pretty crazy. Sea urchin spines, why are those great? Fun fact, I've kissed a sea urchin. It was great. And the okapita, look at that guy. That's cute. Okay. The process works in animals as it does in plants. If the genes of a bear give the bear thicker fur, the bear is more likely to survive a cold winter. The bear will pass the genes off to its offspring, and the offspring will be likely to inherit the useful structural adaptations of its parents. And it's funny because, as humans, for us, right, thick hair, me having thicker hair it's not helpful, but it's not helpful, right? So it's a lot more fun to, I guess, think about those things in terms of animals than it is humans, because we're kind of boring sometimes, because we just use our brain. That's our biggest adaptation, right? That we can use our brain to come up with things to help keep us safe and warm and all those cool stuffs. All right, extinction. A species cannot survive if it does not adapt to changes or move to a new environment. Some species cannot move to a new environment. For example, plants cannot pull themselves up by the roots and walk to another place. Also, the changes may be so widespread that there's nowhere left to move. If a species does not adapt to harmful changes or move away from them, its population will decrease. When a species has no members left that are alive, it becomes an extinct species, like the dodo. Alright, we're almost done, guys. Super long class today. You guys are killing it. Alright, behavioral adaptations. Were you born knowing how to build a house? How many adults in your life know how to build a house? That's impossible. Atlantic ghost crabs, though, are born knowing how to dig deep holes in the sandy beaches where they live. This behavior is due to genes passed on from parent to offspring. Behavioral adaptations are inherited behaviors that help animals survive. Behavioral adaptations are sometimes called instincts. They affect how the animal behaves around other animals. Some animals, like the ghost crab, have an instinct to burrow in the ground and hide from predators, such as shorebirds. Not all behaviors are instincts. Some behaviors are learned by trial and error as a result of training. For example, lion cubs learn to hunt by watching their parents and other animals. A lion cub learns to pounce on its prey by pouncing on its mother's twitching tail. When a zebra is separated from the herd, the adult lions will chase it toward a group of lions that are hiding. The lions will then pounce on the prey, and the cubs learn these behaviors over time. Hello? Hi. The screen just went black. Did you see me? I don't know. Ah! So, similarly, you are taught how to cook. You're taught how to dress yourself, bathe, all those fun things. You are pretty much born knowing how to cry so that you can alert an adult to take care of one of your needs. I'm sure there's more than that, but that's the main one that everybody likes to talk about with babies, right? They just cry all the time. But really, it's actually very helpful because that's how they communicate in the beginning, right? Whether it's, that they're hungry, that they need a diaper change, that they're uncomfortable or they're tired, all kinds of things. You just have to figure it out. Seasonal changes. Now this is fun. I think that's amazing that some animals change throughout the season. In places with cold winters, there's little food for part of the year. Some animals deal with food shortages by migrating or moving. In spring and summer, Canada geese live in Canada and northern United States. They migrate south to escape the cold winter and winter weather. Escape the cold winter weather and to find food. Another type of seasonal behavior is hibernation. Hibernation is a state of inactivity that occurs when in some animals when it gets cold. These animals slow down and become inactive to conserve energy. Some mammals, reptiles, and amphibians hibernate. The snowshoe hare adapts by being brown in the summer and white in the winter, so it makes it harder for predators to see, which I think is pretty cool. And so, number 8, this one is going to be your Flipgrid response question. So it says, do you think that the speed of change in the environment might affect whether or not a species becomes extinct? All right, so if changes are happening quickly in that environment, is that going to make it more likely for a species to become extinct or less likely? Okay, again, slow changes. If things are slowly changing just a little bit and then a little bit and a little bit, which one is going to make it more likely for that species to become extinct? Those slow changes, or the ones that happen rather quickly, like the development of, like a neighborhood or whatever, or an earthquake or a volcano, right? Those are all examples of quick changes. Which one of those is more likely to make a population extinct? All right.